Not yet, yeah.
Okay, that's cool. Awesome.
Right, all right, all right. Welcome aboard, everybody. We are here for another edition of Amplify, our 1920 Negro National League simulation, and we are here. I'm happy to have with us uh, card artist, photographer Donna Muscarella. Welcome, Donna. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
All right, I'm doing good. All right, we're hearing you good, nice and clear. All right. So, it's been an interesting. We were talking before we got online here. I'm a former from the Northeast, and so is Donna. We're going to talk about her origin story and how she got involved in this. But so much going on in this, not just this past recent days and weeks with the some of the initiatives that are going on that you're involved in, but this whole reboot of the 1920 to 2020 Negro National League Centennial and so many other things that I'm so glad to get people like you. And last night we had on Greg Kreindler and his art. The week before we had Dr. James Brunson was on. Actually, he was just on this past Tuesday. Um, Phil S. Dixon, Kevin L. Mitchell, Todd Peterson, Pete Gordon, uh, Paul Julian, so many others are lined up to come in here and to hear your stories and how you became involved in what you're doing, what got you interested in these projects that you're involved in that are centered around the Negro Leagues and what we're all doing to support all of these efforts. So it's great. I'm glad you're here. This will be a lot of fun. So, tell us a little bit. What got you into this? I mean, you're doing the photography. We'll talk about what that involves and everything else. But tell us a little bit about how you got started and about what you've been doing.
Okay, we want to talk about where my love of photography came from. We want to start there?
Yeah, let's start
Okay.
there.
All right.
I find this interesting. I'll just tell you why. I mean, we got that term origin story. Was when I was talking with Dr. Brunson the other day, and he used that term because so much of this, with the Negro Leagues especially, involves a lot of archaeology, I guess, is if you put a little term, but there's a lot of digging going on,
Yeah.
and he used that term when we were talking. I can't remember about what player it was, but it was an early player, and it was different than the story that what was originally told, and I just thought that was a great term. And so I've been interested now to find out what got people going in what they're doing and how they got into the passion and involved in what they're doing. I just think it's great to hear those stories. So, what's
Okay.
your origin story?
So my origin story. Okay. So I, I've been thinking about, because a couple of people have asked me this lately as my photography has gotten out there more, what got me into photography? And I thought, I don't know if I can peg it to one specific thing, but the first thing that definitely had an influence on me was my dad served in the Navy during the Vietnam War,
Mm-hmm.
and was stationed in Puerto Rico. So my mom and dad got married, moved down to Puerto Rico. I was born there.
Oh
So
wow.
my parents were down there with me, and the rest of the family was back in the States in Brooklyn for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
So pictures were very, very, very important. My dad was snapping away like crazy and sending pictures back home so that the family could see the new first grandchild, first great grandchild.
Yes.
So, the, you know, as I got older and seeing those, wow, this is really cool. And I think that's kind of the root of it. And from there, my grandmother always instilled in me a love of art and was very influential in taking me to experience many different things as a kid, whether it was let's go to the zoo, let's go to a Broadway show, let's go to the top of the Empire State Building. She taught me how to explore.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a very sentimental person,
Mm-hmm.
and I wanted to capture those things.
Mm-hmm.
So I think if we take all of that and tie it all together, that's kind of where the love of photography came from.
And what kind of photography did you get started in? Was it um, outdoor, indoor,
Well, it
portraits?
was,
What were you?
I mean,
Anything?
it's funny because we could always tell when we went on a family vacation, we could tell which pictures, or once I got my own very simple, Kodak 110 camera, that was my first camera, nothing fancy.
Mm-hmm.
We could tell what was Donna's and what was everybody else's. Mine were the flowers and the clouds and the animals,
Yeah.
and everybody else's were, oh, there's mom next to the covered wagon, or
Yeah.
whatever it was. So while I don't mind portrait photography, from the standpoint of capturing family history and such, my loves are nature, wildlife, animals, baseball.
And
Um,
I get that because when I started seeing your photographs, what we're going to talk about um, next is, the great photographs that you took of Hinchcliffe Stadium, and tell us how that all came about because it was in your backyard, right?
yeah,
You were,
yeah.
I mean,
It was.
you're in Patterson. Let me,
I'm in Paramus. I'm about
Paramus.
10
Okay.
miles from Paterson.
All right. So close enough. Yeah.
So what happened was, Negro League Centennial gets announced. Part of my plan for 2020 was, I shouldn't say a definitive plan because
Mm-hmm.
a lot of things hinged on it, but they built the ballpark in Dyersville, Iowa at the Field of Dreams, and the Yankees were supposed to play the inaugural game there. So I got this great idea, great idea, that I was going to get my brother to embark on his first baseball road trip. And what we were planning to do was fly from here to Kansas City, see the Yankees play in Kansas City, go to the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum. Then from Kansas City, drive to Dyersville, Iowa, maybe with a stop or two along the way for some minor league ball, do the whole Field of Dreams experience, and then drive from Dyersville up to Minneapolis and see a game at Target Field, and then fly home from there. Of course, that never happened. So here's the Negro Leagues Centennial. I'm not getting to the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum. I'm like, okay. And then they announced, everything shut down. They announced the Tip Your Cap campaign.
Mm-hmm.
to promote the centennial amidst a shutdown. And I said, oh, that would be really cool. Okay, I'll do that. And I can get a little baseball card made up of me tipping my cap.
Right.
And I said, okay.
Sounds like a plan, yeah.
Sounds like a plan.
Yeah.
But, me standing in my backyard tipping my cap, not interesting. Okay, where am I going to go to tip my cap? Everything's shut down. I can't travel to the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum. I can't get into the Jackie Robinson Rotunda at Citi Field. I can't get to the Jackie Robinson plaque in Monument Park at Yankee Stadium.
Awesome.
Okay, so I'm like, oh, I don't know, what am I going to do? So I kind of scrapped the idea and said, well, maybe when things start up and they do something, I'll do something. And so I kind of put it off to the side. And then I'm also, big baseball fan, baseball card collector. It became more and more difficult to get my hands on baseball cards at an affordable price. Mm-hmm. There weren't any shows. My local card shop was shut down. Everything was shut down, right? So I said, hey, you know what? I'm going to switch this out of the baseball card arena, and I'm going to try to start collecting postcards of ballparks in which Negro Leagues baseball were played. And I said, well, in order to do that, I need to come up with a list of the ballparks. Now, some of them were obvious because the Negro Leagues teams were renting places like Yankee Stadium and Fenway Park. But I knew that there were also other fields. Whether or not there were going to be postcards of them, who knows? But sometimes it's all about the hunt, right?
Right.
So I start Googling, and what's the first thing that comes up and slaps me in the face?
Yep.
Hinchcliffe Stadium, 10.2 miles from my house. I was like,
how about that?
What? And it's still standing. What?
Yes.
I'm like, okay. I said, road trip, mini road trip. This is the most I've been out in who knows how long.
Awesome.
So I went down there with my brother in tow because I needed somebody to take the picture of me standing, because now, hello, I've got a place to tip my cap. Mm-hmm. I've got a real legitimate Negro Leagues landmark to tip my cap.
You bet. Can't get more authentic than that.
Exactly. So I, said to my brother, do you have time? It's 2020. Maybe you could take a ride with me down to Paterson one day. He was like, yeah, sure. So, okay. We got there, and I had so many different reactions at once. Number one, I can't tell you how many times I had parked right next to the wall of Hinchcliffe Stadium and I had no clue. It's a stone's throw away from the Paterson Great Falls, which is the second largest waterfall east of the Mississippi.
Huh.
Niagara Falls being the largest.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and I've gone there, I can't tell you how many times, to take pictures. And there's maybe 5 or 6 parking spots that are almost smack up against the back wall of Hinchcliffe Stadium. I was parking at Hinchcliffe and had no idea. I mean, it was there. It was this giant rundown. It was obvious that it was some kind of arena. But if you peeked through the gate that was there, it was an oval. There was no, hint of a baseball diamond. Mm-hmm. It was shaped, the inside was shaped very much like the fields at the Polo Grounds. But with no hint of a baseball diamond, and there were some mosaic panels outside, all depicting track and field. So why would I think that it's got anything to do with baseball? Mm-hmm. No historic plaques, nothing. So I never paid attention to it. So it had been a little while since I had been there, and we're pulling up, and I'm like, oh, I know exactly where we are. And then I saw the Larry Doby mural on the side of the building, and I was like, wait a minute, that's Hinchcliffe Stadium? Mm-hmm. The Doby mural wasn't there the last time that I was there. It went up in the fall of 2019. So I was like, I can't believe I've been here who knows how many times and I don't know what this is. And if I've been here and I don't know what this is, and not that I think I'm, the be all and end all of knowledge, but I can't be the only one that doesn't know this is here. So, we went from, okay, let's do a tip your cap, which I thought I was going to do, hoping that there was a nice ornate kind of gate and I would stand there and maybe it would say Hinchcliffe Stadium and I tip my cap there. It morphed into, okay, I'm going to tip my cap at the Larry Doby mural. Mm-hmm. And then I'm going to start taking pictures of this ballpark and we're going to figure out how to turn this into a photography project and, a kind of parallel set or, companion set to my tip your cap card. Mm-hmm. And then it kind of morphed into, okay, well, the Hinchcliffe Stadium card or the Hinchcliffe Stadium set, that's the star here. And the tip your cap card is kind of the, not afterthought, but that's, that hasn't gone out to everybody. That's gone to, I only printed, 20
So for people who don't know the significance of this, and I'm sure it's going to be most, myself included, until I started talking to you and I did more digging into it. I mean, I knew of Hinchcliffe Stadium prior because of the Negro League connection, but didn't really know it. But for people who don't know, I mean, this place was a big deal. I mean, it was built in 1932. Mm-hmm. It had everybody who's anybody was there. I mean, you're talking from the big bands with Duke Ellington. You're talking Babe Ruth was there. They played big time football there. The Negro Leagues played there. The Black Yankees and
the New York Cubans.
And the New York Cubans. This place was a big deal, and they built it in that, like you said, that beautiful spot with the waterfall. I'm thinking with the proximity to New York, it was probably a pretty popular, spot. They had boxing championships there. I mean, Joe Louis was there. I mean, this place was a big deal. I wanted, what was it, 10,000 seats ish or so, right?
Approximately, yeah.
And they built it in that oval style, like you mentioned, like the Polo Grounds. Mm-hmm. And it just, I mean, so I hope, people understand that the fact that it kind of what it was a big deal, and what it now became over the years of disuse and so forth, to the point where people who were there didn't even realize what they had sitting there. Yeah. It's amazing. I mean, so when you so you go out there, you take these photographs. What? How many pictures did you take? And then at some point, how did the idea of making them into the actual cards? What was that whole thought process? Because I think it's very, very cool what you did with the way that each card tells a story. It's very, very cool.
Thank you very much. Mm-hmm. So as I was walking around the ballpark, at that point, I didn't know. I knew that it had been a Negro Leagues ballpark, a designated home ballpark, but I hadn't gone to look to see who had played there and what games, had played there at that point. So I'm walking around and I'm imagining, I'm going, oh, did Josh Gibson play here? Did mm-hmm. Satchel Paige play here? Did, Double Duty Radcliffe, Rap Dixon, who played here? Mm-hmm. And just as I'm walking around and I'm thinking more and more, I couldn't get into the ballpark. So I'm thinking more and more about, kind of time capsule. What was it like mm-hmm. to be here and to see these things? And so I started taking pictures from a lot of different points of view. I did some from a photojournalistic standpoint. So, okay, let's tell the story. And this is what eventually evolved into what I'm hoping is part one of a series of card sets. Mm-hmm. Okay, let's tell the story of, from a, photography standpoint, what it would have been like to come to the ballpark. Mm-hmm. Kind of, while I didn't have the benefit or the privilege of actually seeing a game, I'm walking up to this ballpark for the first time. So let's capture the entrance gate. Let's capture the ticket booth. Let's capture walking through and then eventually getting to the stands. So I made sure to get, a bunch of shots of that. And then we figured out what fit best on the cards. But then I also started capturing things like the terracotta roof tiles and the flagpoles that sit bare now. And sadly, the place is covered in graffiti. But in some senses, there's a couple of pictures that I got that I haven't shared with anybody yet, that where the words that are part of the graffiti / street art kind of lend themselves to the story.
I get it. Yeah. No, I'm with you. Go ahead. Yeah. I see it.
So, or you can actually see in one part of the ballpark, there are some windows that are kind of eye level for me, which is really low because I'm only 5 feet tall. But you can see in, and I don't know if they were the locker rooms before or what they were, but there's, an ancient fan mounted to the wall, and a really old radiator, and that's even all covered in graffiti. But the way that the shadows were playing, and to imagine, the ghost of Satchel Paige walking through, or it was just, so there's a lot of story to be told there. The sad part is that because of what it looks like now, you have to really push your imagination to see past the graffiti.
Boy, yes, that was my first reaction, was probably much like yours when I saw what it looked like now. And I thought, man, that is a shame. But you know what? It's all part of the story, and it's almost, and we'll talk about it in a little bit. I want to keep going with what you're doing with this thought process, but we're going to talk about, kind of like the Phoenix rising up here, what they're going to be doing with this stadium in the near future. And that could be a whole nother cool project too, right?
Oh yes.
Yeah. So so yes, I can see, exactly what not exactly, but I get what you're talking about as far as that goes. And what I'd like to do, I don't have, if you mind for just a second here, I'm going to throw up on the screen. You've got a couple of cards that were posted on the Sabre Journal about you.
Yes.
And I'd like to just show what those looked like, because so what we've got here are there's just 4 cards, but it's kind of the depiction that you were just talking about, and so keep on going on that, because I think it's really a cool way to get this whole project, what you did, started. It's pretty neat.
Okay, so I wanted to, so now say, okay, we're going to make a card set out of this. I didn't know really at that point, is it going to be 4 cards, 5 cards, 8 cards, whatever. But once I sat and looked through the pictures, I'm like, okay, this is the story. The gate, the ticket booth, walk through, sit in the stands. Okay, now how do we do this and pay tribute to the Negro Leagues and tell a bit of the history of the ballpark? So what I decided to do was to design the backs of the cards. Obviously, the shape is different, but to design the back of the cards to have a similar look to the 1933 Gaudies. There's cool. My tip of your cap.
There's your tip in the cap with the mural. I hope people realize that looks like a baseball card you would find from the 60s, that the style that you use there, and you would think that that's a Larry Doby card. That's the mural on the outside of the stadium, correct?
Yes, it is.
That is way cool.
It's beautiful. It extends quite a bit, and you can see a little teeny bit of it just on the right of the card, where that's Doby in Hinchcliffe Stadium. And so the picture kind of extends out, and then to the right of it is it tells a little bit of his history. Larry Doby, Silk City Slugger, I think was his nickname. Silk City being Paterson.
Cool.
Paterson Eastside High School, broke the color barrier of the American League. So it tells you a little bit very succinctly about Larry Doby and why he's a favorite son of Paterson.
Awesome.
So yeah.
I loved it because I don't know I can't call myself a storyteller, but I like to tell stories. I mean, so if you noticed, I mean, today on Twitter I sent out leading up to this, right? And when I do, I'm trying to touch every day with because the Negro Leagues, the history is so deep. There's so much misinformation. There's so much that needs to be addressed and readdressed and recalibrated and in the way people have viewed it over the years. And that's why, I just kind of started this project about 6-8 weeks ago, bringing people on like yourself and Greg and authors and historians to tell their viewpoints and what they've learned, because everybody's had like we talked, like I mentioned, that origin story that Dr. Brunson mentioned about some of the players from the 1850s and 60s in the Negro Leagues, and so every day I try to find that little piece of the country that maybe they never heard of it, because there is a Negro League footprint, whether it was a game, a player, a barnstorming tour, something, probably in someone's area just about everywhere. And if you turn around and look like you did, there it is, right? I mean, there it is at Hinchcliffe Stadium, and it's a beautiful one. And so I love it. I like the story, telling aspect of it. I'm going to scroll down a little bit here and show that. So, all right. So go ahead.
So yeah, there's the way that the backs of the cards look. So I wanted to give the cards a bit of a vintage look and feel, not necessarily vintage shape, but vintage look and feel. And as I started researching the ballpark, so we know it was built, opened, grand opening 1932, 1933. The New York Black Yankees moved in and they hosted what was called at the time the Colored World Series. So I decided to design the backs as an homage to the 1933 Gaudi style of card.
Very nice. Yeah, cool.
So
yeah.
I did that, and then I had them printed on matte stock. It's 18-point baseball card thickness stock, but it doesn't have a glossy finish to it. So it kind of tied into the whole vintage look and feel, the whole storytelling of you're going to the ballpark, and and I started researching. Okay, let's find out a bit about the players that played there, and let's find out a bit about what it means to we have 11 Negro League players that played there as a Negro Leaguer, and then Larry Doby was discovered there while playing high school ball and ended up being drafted by the Newark Eagles. So that begs the question, because again, Monty Irvin had his tryout there, which was witnessed by according to stories, Josh Gibson and Buck Leonard were in the ballpark when Monty Irvin had his tryout. So there's the Newark Eagles tie-in. So did Effa Manley go and watch the tryouts? We don't know. There's another Hall of Famer. Alex Pompez owned the New York Cubans. There's another Hall of Famer.
Everybody that I'm seeing on this list, on these cards, is all in the Hall of Fame, every one of them.
Yeah, right. That's what I did. I specifically listed the Hall of Famers. And now you have people that, hopefully will eventually make it into the Hall of Fame. Double Duty Radcliffe played there. Rap Dixon played there. There are tie-ins to other people, and then you take it one step further and you say, okay, I wanted the cards to celebrate the Negro Leagues, but I also wanted them to give people, kind of dangle a carrot and make people want to learn some things about the Negro Leagues themselves. There's only so much you can fit on the back of those little baseball cards. And it was hard to decide what to put there. But I wanted to do a little bit of history and a little, about specifically what happened there, but also tell a bit about ties to that and what it means for baseball today. So when you see the story about Rabbit Martinez, And then Alex Pompez, after he left the Negro Leagues and went and worked for the Giants and,
Mm-hmm.
Hired Rabbit to become a scout in the Dominican Republic, and the two of them established the talent pipeline from the Dominican Republic to the majors and brought up people like Juan Marichal and the Alou brothers. And, that all ties
Mm-hmm.
back to the Negro Leagues.
Yeah, boy, what you're saying is really funny because I just thinking about this the other day. I was talking to my brother, and we talk about a lot of different things. He lives in Virginia still, but we talk quite a bit, and a lot of it's about sports, and a lot of it's about this because I talk to anybody that'll listen to me about things like this, and you've heard that game that what is it like the seven
Uh,
layers of Kevin Bacon or whatever.
yeah, six degrees of Kevin
Yeah,
Bacon.
there you go, right?
Yeah.
And so what you're describing, I thought that exact same thing about the Negro Leagues. It's probably less than 6 degrees to the Negro Leagues from, and just about everybody that you can think of in the sport and beyond it has some connection. I mean, I was thinking about that, and it's like, wow, this guy played with this guy, and they played over here, and then a couple of years later they met this guy, and he owned this team, and yeah, they all connect back to over here again, and
Yeah.
it just
Yeah.
that's just the way all these stories have all seem to play out. And I don't think people know enough about that. I mean, I've been saying this over and over again with these last several broadcasts. Well, just about in every broadcast. One of the things I think that has been I don't want to say overlooked because the people who have been at this for such a long time, they get it. But the casual fan and the less than casual fan who just maybe has heard a name, a team, whatever it is, don't understand the impact, like we're talking about, that the Negro Leagues and its history had, uh, not just on the sport of baseball,
Mm-hmm.
because, like I mentioned, when I try to touch a different little town or area every day with something about the Negro Leagues with that area, because they were playing in the fashion they were with the barnstorming and less than standard schedules, and they did that for reasons that they had to make a living for the most part, but they were everywhere, and by doing that, they spread the brand of baseball, professional baseball, that would normally not be seen by small towns in Iowa or North Dakota or you name a place, right?
Yeah.
And they
Yeah.
brought professional baseball, and many times on barnstorming tours they brought professional major leaguers, played them there,
Sure.
and so they did. You talk about becoming America's game. um, a lot of that beginning of America's game dating back a long time, yes, but the spreading of it everywhere and getting people involved in it in their local communities, the Negro Leagues had a huge hand in that, and I don't think people understand that.
Yeah.
They certainly don't know. Most people don't know about that, and it goes back a long, long way. As I talked to Dr.
Yeah.
Brunson the other day, he was telling me about players that going back to the 1850s. I found this. Things about a Negro League team, women's team that was formed in Philadelphia in 1867, I think it was.
Mm-hmm.
It's incredible the history that's there. So anyway,
No,
I go on. I go on about. I just wanted to just highlight because I just think your story and what you're saying. These pictures. Here's what I thought when I saw these pictures the first time. You're right. The graffiti aside, because it's a more modern thing, but the condition of the stadium, it's almost like an analogy, of what happened with the Negro Leagues, and through the efforts of everybody who's involved in all of these projects and talking, and Bob Kendrick at the museum, and you name it, trying to get these stories told again. I think it's going to blow the dust off of it again and shine up those tiles and, and clean up the
yeah.
graffiti.
Yeah. Yeah.
The graffiti is actually, it's a great analogy because there's so much misinformation about the Negro Leagues. It almost is like graffiti in a way.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
go on. I just wanted to, point some of these things out because I just think that was what I loved about this this project that you did in the card set, because I think it's a great illustration of this whole thing that we're talking about.
Thank
It
you.
really is. Yeah.
A couple of things that to tack on to what you said. Um, One of the things that I hope happens with this set, and one of the reasons that I was so thrilled that you invited me to come on, is I want to inspire people to explore. I want to inspire people to learn. And I'm hoping that, you know, somebody sees this set, learns something, and tells two friends. And then they tell two friends, you know, like that 80s shampoo
That's
commercial, right?
I
They tell two
am at
friends,
that.
they tell
I
two friends.
gotcha. I am trying to do that every day. Yes.
And
Yep.
that's part of the goal of this. I mean, yeah, it's great that my photography's out there. It's that's wonderful. But this was, let's get the story out there, because not only is this a fantastic baseball story,
Mm-hmm.
but this is an American dream
It's a
story.
yes,
The
absolutely.
Negro Leagues.
Yes.
Okay, you told me I can't. Yeah, I don't think so. I'm going to prove you wrong. And I mean, what a story of American spirit and entrepreneurship,
You find a way. That's right. Yeah.
right? And
That's right.
it's just such a wonderfully inspiring story. And then you think about all of the things. The Negro Leagues played night baseball before Major League Baseball played night
So many
baseball.
things. Yes. You got it.
It's just such a wonderful, wonderful story. There's so much to it.
There is, and I'm gonna keep on trying to tell these kind of stories. I'm so glad that you are telling this one, because I think it's a very, very cool one. So let's go to the next step now, right? So now you've got this card. So I'm gonna put you back on here now. All
Okay.
right. Um, all right, there you are. So now we've got your card set. It's out there, and now the next thing that's coming, and I don't know when it was approved, but I know it was. There is going to be a rebirth of Hinchcliffe Stadium, correct?
Yes. Yes. So I just want to take a step back for 1 second, because Greg talked about this last night, and I just want to mention it with my card set as well. So I am selling the cards, and that's not so much why I am mentioning this. This isn't really a
Mm-hmm.
commercial for me, but one of the things that Greg said was making sure that royalties go to where they're due.
Mm-hmm.
And so this isn't just Donna Muscarella selling her photography.
Yeah.
This is, I'm selling my photography, and I'm giving 20% straight off the top back to the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum
Mm-hmm.
for the sets that I'm
Cool.
selling.
All right. Cool.
So yeah, it's yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Good. No, it's the right. It's what at I think most people as well feel like you. I mean, whatever part you can do to contribute and help out and keep things flowing, and this project stems from that. Yeah, I mean, this is why you're doing it, to spread the word and help where you can. So, um, it's something that I think before we got on here, I told you where I got into this. It's been a long time I've been talking about this, and I really, I mean, I still have a day job, but I mean, it's it's changed somewhat from where I was because of the pandemic. And isn't it funny? Like, you just, and why I'm thinking about this is because you mentioned about the sometimes how you have to adapt and change and keep things moving forward. So the pandemic comes along, and it gave me time. So at the time, you know, where I work, it's manufacturing. Things were shut down. It was looking pretty dire, right? But we got through it. Things are okay. But it gave me time to get more of my thoughts of this and what I was doing kind of a side thing for many years, just talking and writing and everything else. And so you like you pointed out, sometimes when things don't look the best, you can still find a way. Find a way. That's the American spirit, right? And so
Yeah,
when you say
absolutely.
that about the Negro Leagues, that's exactly what they did. Faced with the conditions and the Jim Crow laws, the segregation, everything that they had to deal with. Nobody today can ever possibly know what that
No,
was like for these guys, and
no.
it to give them the credit. That's why, and we're going to talk about it, but that's why I'm all in on the Josh Gibson renaming the MVP award. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but
Yeah. Okay.
because it's not just the Josh Gibson renaming. It's something that would be for all of these guys to get some, and everyone involved in it to get some
Absolutely.
measure of credibility. But anyway, I just want to. So I talk a lot. I get off track sometimes. So, but anyway, let's get back to where. So I can see what's coming. Right, they're
Yes.
going to be renovating Hinchcliffe Stadium, and you're going to be there, right?
But I was there for the groundbreaking. That was on April 13th. That we actually got to go on to the field. I mean, the Negro Leagues field has been paved over, so I wasn't walking on the same ground, but still, to be inside the ballpark was very special.
Mm-hmm.
And
Absolutely.
so they kind of laid out the rough plans for what's going to happen. It's a very, very, very aggressive renovation schedule. They are hoping to play the traditional Thanksgiving Day football game there in November of 2022.
Oh wow. So yeah.
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 So,
Not
it's
that
supposed
far
to be
off.
a complete refurbishment inside and out. They're planning to build a small Negro Leagues museum there. There will be a restaurant, there's going to be a parking deck, and the ball field is supposed to be put back with the same configuration as existed for the Negro Leagues. Because after the Negro Leagues left Hinchcliffe, they reconfigured for high school ball and such. And it's, you can see the layout of that. The bases aren't still there, but there's plantings. I don't know what the heck they did, but there's something, and I have pictures of it, so they'll come out eventually.
Mm-hmm.
Um, if you think the short porch in Yankee Stadium is short, this was. I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, it's. I don't know, but happily they've
I
announced
I
that
want to.
they're gonna put things back. Dare I say the right way?
I want to see these. I want to see this process. I think it's going to be so cool to see that. I wish that they somebody had told maybe it's not too late. Set up some camera in a corner somewhere and time lapse it as it
Yeah,
as it went through as things are being renovated. It would be really cool to see the graffiti disappear and this
yes,
become new
yeah.
again, and
Well,
it would
they
be really
need
cool.
to they need to secure, and and I'm not saying this from the standpoint of trying to put down the law enforcement officials in Paterson, who I know work very hard, and the Paterson community. This is not a knock, but for so long it's been a place for street artists to express themselves, and it's not secured as well as it could be. So there have been efforts to repaint, and it just gets painted over again and over again and over again.
Oh
So
boy, yeah.
they need to
Yeah, I
secure
mean, they
the
made it.
area.
It looks like a
And
skate park. That's exactly what it looks like when you see some of the graffiti. Like it looks like a
you,
skate
it,
park. Yeah.
and some of it is very uh,
Well done. I'm
colorful,
sure.
and
Yeah.
you walk around and you read some of what's there. I mean, look, it's it is what it is, and hopefully, you know there can be a place for that. Not to get totally off topic,
Hmm.
but there's this great area that I'm actually hoping to get to in a couple of weeks. And it's an art park in Coney Island in Brooklyn, and there are art walls there, and artists are given, a without destroying property. There is space for street art, because there are some beautiful street art. I mean,
Hmm.
they are artists in their own right.
Hmm.
Um,
Absolutely. Yeah.
but there are places for it and there are places for it.
Mm-hmm.
So it would be wonderful if there could be some sort of way for these artists to be able to express themselves
Mm-hmm.
as part of this whole renovation. I mean, you've seen up
Suggest
on
that.
Twitter.
That's actually a pretty cool idea. Why not?
Why not, right?
Why not put up a wall somewhere in the corner and let people uh, do uh, their expression, their art there, and it becomes part of the whole experience. I think it'd be kind of
Yeah,
cool.
yeah. We'll see what happens, right?
Yeah,
Maybe somebody will hear this and say, "Wow, that's kind of cool." I don't know.
yeah, maybe right.
But
So you're going to document this. I think that's going to be
that's my hope.
yeah, that would be very, very cool to see this whole process and see because I imagine you took a number of pictures for the cards that you
I've
printed,
got
and so
quite.
you're going to have some nice before and afters, I think, which would be pretty cool
Yeah,
to see. And
it's
like I said, never knowing much about this stadium other than seeing it in accounts of games and box scores and whatnot, and then finding out what took place there 100 years ago,
yeah,
almost. Yeah, it's a piece of American history there, and more
absolutely,
people need to know about it. I think it's really
absolutely.
really cool. I'm glad
Yep.
you did what you did. Do you have any plans? So I think you touched on it maybe a little bit in the beginning, but you have some plans to do this in other similar situation type of stadiums or any other stadiums
Well,
that are?
I want to talk a little bit more about what my hope is in terms of what to release for Hinchcliffe, and
Okay.
then we can transition. So I want to, do a during and after,
Hmm.
but I also want to do a little bit more of an abstract kind of set that shows some of the, the through the window grading and into what I think might have been locker rooms, and so
Cool.
it so you can see, yes, it's tragic the disrepair that it's fallen into, but I think it will give that much more of an appreciation of the
Hmm.
after.
Absolutely.
Um,
Yeah, that'd be cool.
so yeah, so it
Hmm.
and it's there's so it's going to be easy to fill up the backs of the cards.
Hmm.
Quite honestly, that was the hardest part of this project, figuring out with all of the information that's out there how to get it all onto the
Hmm.
backs of four little cards.
Hmm.
So
You need more.
we'll
You need to
see.
have more cards.
Yeah. So we'll see kind of how things evolve. I haven't decided anything about timing with any of this. I want to continue to get the word out there about this set,
Hmm.
and
So,
then we'll go from there.
so
So,
that's another question I had. Let's just think about let's go with the first one first that I asked you about. Are you going to do this anywhere else?
anywhere else? Yeah. Now, I from the standpoint of storytelling, I would love to.
Hmm. And
The
the fact you're doing your own photography, which is great. I mean, that makes it really personal on a lot of levels.
Absolutely,
I think it's fun.
absolutely.
Yeah.
But as Greg Kreindler alluded to last night, there's a licensing issue.
Yeah, I would
So,
imagine you do have to run into that some places. Yes.
right. So, could I do it for Rickwood Field? Yes, which I would love to do. I'd love to get down to Birmingham and do a set, more elaborate, because it's going to be I don't want to say one and done kind of thing, but it's a functioning ballpark right now. There is no,
Hmm.
Phoenix rising from the ashes story there.
Hmm.
That's already happened.
Hmm.
So, although I don't think it ever got to the point there of what Hinchcliffe is now.
There's also a
But
number of stadiums around the country that I've been discovering that have um, been dedicated to Negro League players, the history of that over the
yes,
years, and that's
yes.
something else that might be interesting as
I
well.
mean, there's so many different aspects of Negro League's history that I can capture and hope to
Hmm.
capture through my photography.
Hmm.
So while there may not necessarily be sets that feature major league ballparks, like for example, there's the Jackie Robinson Rotunda at Citi Field is beautiful, and there's
Hmm.
pictures and quotes, but I can't mass reproduce that
Mm-hmm.
because it's licensed
Mm-hmm.
by Major League Baseball and by the New York Metropolitans.
Mm-hmm.
So I can, however, I can photograph it to my heart's content, and I can use those photos in one of one pieces of art.
Mm-hmm.
And I am ramping up to start releasing pieces like that in the not too distant future.
Cool. Awesome. All right. Good. 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 Good.
So
So that was something I wanted to ask you as well. I know you've got some things going on Instagram. Are you gonna you got you where can people even look and find your what you got going on?
Twitter and Instagram right now are my two homes. I haven't ventured out beyond that yet. At
Mm-hmm.
some point, you know, I probably will get a website for
Mm-hmm.
myself, and hopefully at some point, if my portfolio gets big enough where it's not just okay, I've got, because it's all going to be, with the exception of the cards, it's going to be one of one pieces.
Mm-hmm.
And, I will sell them on Twitter and Instagram, and, we'll see where things go. I've only started publicly sharing my photography. I mean, friends and family, coworkers have been seeing it for years.
Mm-hmm.
I've only started putting my stuff out there for the world to see this past January. So
Mm-hmm.
this is really new to me,
Mm-hmm.
and I've been loving it. And, I did it for a number of reasons. One, to, get the word out there about the Negro Leagues card set and the Negro Leagues, but also, to sell my photography at some point. I've sold some pieces already,
Mm-hmm.
but also to inspire other people to
Mm-hmm.
get out there and explore.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a camera and you want to explore and create, great. If you just want to get out there and explore, that's fine too. And
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't matter. City, country, in between, there's
And
always something interesting.
and like you said, if you're going to do either of those things or both, tell somebody about it.
Yeah,
So that they can tell
exactly.
somebody, and it keeps on
Exactly.
going.
Exactly.
That's
Exactly.
that's really an important thing.
Yeah.
The communication and connections and networking and keeping this going because
Yeah.
the next generation needs to take the next step and know about this. And that's I mean, 20 years ago, I got to meet, as I mentioned to you, actually closer to 30 years, at the Reggie Jackson benefit at Scranton Lackawanna County Stadium, and I got met to meet many of the Negro Leaguers who were still with us back then, and it was, I thought I knew a lot about baseball history, and turns out I didn't know half of it, and and it changed everything that I've been doing for the last almost 30 years now, and then to find out that Phil Dixon was there. And I
Yeah.
probably shook his hand, and here we are talking 30 years later.
Right.
And but my point was is that back in those days, you could count on one hand, probably, or two hands, the number of people who were even talking or doing anything in the way of research. Now there's at least a growing number of people and so
Oh
many
gosh.
more, and I'm going to have more on here that are going to be contributing in the coming weeks and months. I've got people lined up all the way into July now, which is very cool. It's been I'm
That's
great.
very
I'm just so glad people are willing to come on here and share what they're doing,
sure.
and the but that being said, you got to start getting younger people and people interested in it that are going to also continue that work because in talking to Dr. Brunson the other day, it's like archaeology and there's a lot of, like I mentioned earlier, a lot of misconception stories that, there's certain people who are going to write this off and they're going to say the Negro Leagues were double A, triple A talent, and that's that. You cannot get through. And if you hit that wall, there's not really much you can do, right?
Well,
but
I
but
vehemently opposed to that
yeah,
classification.
it doesn't make any sense on so many levels. I mean, they didn't just spring out of the earth
Yeah.
in 1947 and become MVPs,
Right.
in both
Exactly.
leagues for the next 15
Yeah.
years. But
Right.
the point is that I was trying to get to was uh, like archaeology and art history or whatever you want to get into, sometimes your viewpoint today is based on the information you have today. And so you form an opinion and you talk about it. But then more information comes in and it makes you, you rethink that first position and you adjust it, and then more information comes in. And so that's kind of what the Negro League, this has makes so fascinating about it, because there is so much more to be discovered, and that's going to change and the perceptions, hopefully for a lot more people. I think there's more and more people who are getting it now as to what was going on and the aspects that were involved there. But I think that the more of these stories like yours and Greg's and everybody else that we get out there that isn't necessarily a historian or an author on the Negro Leagues, but found themselves getting involved in it, that's some cool stuff, because you know there's people who've been doing this for a long time. That's what they've been doing, and they're good at it. This is something that you just kind of, hey, wow, how about that? And it touched you to move and do things,
Yeah.
and much like with Greg's project and how we got involved with all of those paintings for the card set and everything else. I mean, it's just fascinating. I mean, I think it's great, and these are the kind of things that we all have to get more people involved in doing this. I think it's really cool.
And I encourage anybody who has the opportunity to do so. A couple of things that, one, you can do from the comfort of your own home, even.
Yes.
If
yes.
you can get to the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum in Kansas City, do it.
Yep.
Get there early. You're gonna fall in love with the place and want to read every single word of everything.
Yep.
It's an unbelievably amazing place.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing, Bob Kendrick can tell stories like nobody.
Oh, and his podcast he's got going now is just, I mean, my goodness gracious. I mean, yeah.
Absolutely. Listen to that podcast if while you're whatever.
I might have to move my usual. I've been trying to do these like Tuesday, Thursday, but I'm flexible. Whenever people can get on, really, because I get it. Everybody's got different things that they're doing, jobs, whatever, right? So I'll do whenever somebody wants to come on. I'll try to make it work, but I may have to move to Thursday one just because that's when he does. That's when he does his.
But the beauty of on demand, right?
That's great. It's there, yeah. And I've been uploading them to YouTube, so that I've got a YouTube channel, and they'll be there. I think so. Just so people know what Twitch is, in case people are not aware of what it is. Back, I want to say 15, 20 years ago, when online gaming for games like Call of Duty, and I've got to admit, I was when my boys were younger, I was a Call of Duty and a Zombies player, back in the day. I haven't got a chance to do it much now, but that's how I found it. And then Amazon bought it a few years back, and so it's part of that. So if you have an Amazon Prime membership, you can get a Twitch account. So if you ever consider wanting to do something along those lines, because Greg said maybe something he could do to stream some of the stuff he's doing, and other people I've talked to the same thing. So it's available and it's there, and it's cool because, like you said, it saves the videos, so you can watch them later, and I think you get it for. If you're not an Amazon Prime member, you get it maybe 60 days if you're Amazon Prime, and you might get it up to a year that they're there. But I've been saving them on the YouTube channel as well, because I think these conversations are great. I think people, hopefully, one day if they go back and listen to them, they probably learn something. I've talked to so many cool people, and there's only been 6 or 8 of them so far. I mean, I got more.
You haven't even scratched the surface.
No, I got so many more to come. I could hardly wait. Yeah, and anybody wants to come back on anytime, and tell me updates, and then we could update people as to where you're at on the project. I think that would be great. So that was the next thing I wanted to ask you was.
Well, wait, hold on.
Okay.
I want to add a couple of other things to that list of things, if you don't mind.
Sure.
There's the Discover Greatness exhibit that we talked about a little bit.
Okay.
You can access it online now via the Yogi Berra Museum and Learning Center website. And what the Discover Greatness exhibit is the history of the Negro Leagues told through photography.
Awesome. Okay.
And it's a wonderful exhibit. I had the pleasure of being able to see it live um, maybe 6 weeks before the shutdown. It was the end of January. And they've instituted technology. When you're seeing it online, you don't get to do it yourself, but they have them up side by side. They've colorized a bunch of these pictures. And it really is amazing. It tells the story going all the way back pre the Negro Leagues to Moses Fleetwood Walker, and then all the way through to the color barrier being broken in every major league team. So from Jackie Robinson to Pumpsie Green.
Yeah. That's some fun stuff. Yeah.
You can, the Yogi Berra Museum is reopened now. They reopened, I believe, May 1st.
I did see that. Yeah.
But the exhibit is available online. There's a wonderful documentary. I know you're going to have her on as a guest soon, called The Other Boys of Summer.
Yes, I've talked to Lauren, and we are working on getting her on here in June sometime. So yeah, that's going to be fun.
And I know she's, open to offering screenings for groups. So that's another, wonderful thing to check out.
Cool.
And then lastly, if you're a baseball fan, you don't have to be a stats geek. If you're a baseball fan, become a member of SABR. The amount of information that is there. I don't care, if you're a baseball fan who loves baseball cards, there's a group for that. Yep. If you're a baseball fan that loves photography, there's a group for that. Negro Leagues, there's a group for that.
19th century, you name it.
Yes, everything. Yeah, everything. And the amount of information that is there and available. And a lot of things, you talk about silver linings that come out of a tragedy like the coronavirus pandemic. SABR is offering so many things virtually now. I've attended, meetings with the Chicago chapter, with the New York chapter, and from the comfort of my home office.
Oh, how can you beat that, right? I mean,
right? And so if you want to learn, those are all great opportunities,
awesome. Yeah.
to learn. So
cool, good. I think, that's the kind of stuff that people may not even be aware is out there and easily accessible, and you can do it from the comfort of your own, in your sweatpants and pajamas or whatever you want.
Or whatever
you want to do. Yeah.
So I'm sorry I interrupted you.
Oh no, that's okay. That's okay. That was good stuff. The question I wanted to ask you for sure was, you've been through this process now. You're getting involved in another process, which we're going to talk about in a second too, but that has to do with creating cards. What's if someone is going to go process, and they're going to think about doing their own custom cards, what can you tell us about that experience and that to share with other people that might be interested in doing something like that?
I'd say first and foremost, follow your heart. Whatever your style is, whatever your vision is, go with that. Don't say, oh, well, Topps does this, or, people seem to like this. You do you. And because don't try and be something you're not, because the end result is going to be subpar. You do you. Not everybody's going to love everything, and that's okay. But you do you. Whether you're a sketch artist, whether you're a digital artist, whether you're a photographer, storyteller, a glue and scissors person, there's this whole wonderful card art movement out there. You do you. And if that, whatever form that ends up taking, it's going to be the right thing. So that's number one. Number two, tell a story. Whether it be through a series of cards or a single card, tell a story. That's one of the things that I love about baseball cards. As I mentioned before, I'm a very sentimental person, and I love the style of, the cards from, the early 70s and okay, the guys are standing there, with the bat extended or whatever the case may be. It just, it tells a story of the time. And that was, very much the photography style of, and I'm embarrassed, his name is escaping me at the moment, Doug McWilliams, I am pretty sure, um, took most of those pictures. And a photographer's style is always going to come through
Mm-hmm.
in his work, because photography is art.
Mm-hmm.
No different from the medium, may be different, but photography is art.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're creating a set, you do you. And don't be surprised if in the course of doing things, the vision changes a little.
Mm-hmm.
What you thought was going to be 20 is 4, or what you thought was going to be 2 is 15. You do you. And once you know what you want to incorporate in there, then you figure out what the right medium for it is.
Mm-hmm.
Is
That's a
is
great point.
it,
Yeah.
you know, is it to produce a set? There are companies out there that do print baseball cards. Some of them print them in a minimum run of 25. Some
Mm-hmm.
of them print in a minimum run of 250.
Cool.
You know, there's opportunities to get them printed on sheets, and then you get them cut. There's tons of different ways to do
Are
it.
there is there anybody? And you've been talking to a lot of people recently, I know for sure. But in is there a resource somewhere that is there a list of resources like that people could ever find if they were look rather than trying to Google somewhere? Is someone listing like, okay, these are the people who can print and do this, and these people
Not that
these
I'm aware of, but I'm happy. Any card artist out there that wants to learn
Mhm.
or has questions, I'm happy to be a resource. And if I don't know the answer, I'm connected.
I just
Connected.
I just
I
think it's
know
a I think
enough of
it's
other
just
people that will be able to get the answer.
I just think it's very, very cool because I mean, I don't think people realize that, you ask 99% of people, unless they're a real, real baseball fan, they're going to think that, hey, baseball cards, they're going to have to buy Don Russ, or they're going to have to buy Topps, or they're going to have to buy whatever set is out there, right? I don't think people realize that there is a growing number of artists and card artists that are out there, and some of the stuff is pretty darn cool.
Oh,
I follow a bunch of these guys on there, and they're putting out some things, and you go, wow. No, there's some others I look at them and they go, nah, that's a little weird, but that's like you're saying,
that's art.
but that's
That's
me.
okay.
Yeah, and
Right.
that's me. And there might be somebody else who looks at that and goes, "Wow!" And the stuff that I like, they're going, "Oh, that's weird." So I that is
Yeah.
exactly right. The
Yeah.
eye of the eye of the beholder, right? But
Yeah.
I don't think people realize how many people are out there doing it, and I think it's great because it gets so many more voices out there in different ways, and really allows for all that creativity to be that people can see. You can see it when someone does a card, like you're saying that uh, those photographers, and what was so beautiful about the Topps cards when they first came out, those were works of art because those were hand drawn
Oh, well,
cards of
yeah.
all these
Yeah.
players. I mean, and so each one of them was a work of art, and that's so all these things follow that same kind of vein like those early cards because they are created by someone who's putting their effort and time and work. It's not mass produced, and I'm not taking anything away. I think baseball cards are great. I stopped collecting them a long time ago, but I'm just saying that there is a. I don't think people are aware of that. It would be very, very cool to get some of these resources and things in front of people because
Yeah, and
yeah,
the card art community is a wonderful,
I bet,
welcoming
yeah,
group.
I bet, yeah,
And I'm a relative newcomer on the block, and I have been welcomed with such open arms.
yeah,
If you go on to Twitter or Instagram and you just look up hashtag card art,
hmm,
you're going to find a tremendous community of wonderful, you know, women and men,
hmm,
um, who are just doing what they love
yeah.
for,
Tell
for the
this,
love of the sport.
yeah, yeah. It's their
For the
passion.
love of the art, for the,
It is.
whatever.
No, it's their passion. It is what it is.
Yeah.
That's you can see it. But I like that about follow, tell a story, follow your heart. Those are the things that, yeah, you really, um, if you stick to what you're good at and your focus, in the end, yeah, it's going to come out.
Yeah.
Telling that story, yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
That's the way to do it.
I had the benefit of, the help of some great people in that community, and I'm more than happy to pay that forward.
Yeah,
And
cool.
So if anybody has any questions, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram, as well as a whole group of people that's ready to support.
All right, and so that's the next thing I wanted to talk about too. To maybe wrap this up, or we'll talk about whatever you want to talk about. But it was the last thing on my list of things I wanted to make sure I asked you is about the card art, the campaign that's kind of swirling and revolving around the renaming of the Most Valuable Player Award for Josh Gibson. So
Yeah.
you're involved in that a little bit. Why don't you tell us what's going on there?
I am. So there is a movement that's going on right now. So before we talk about the movement, so just give people some history.
Mm-hmm.
The Major League Baseball MVP award in both the National League and the American League had been named for Kennesaw Mountain Landis, and his name was stripped from the award last year because of his connection, power, whatever you want to call it, of maintaining the color barrier and keeping Major League Baseball segregated. And the decision was made that his name needed to come off of the award. So when that award was given to players in 2020, it had no name on it. They want to rename the award, and one of the names that, according to at least one writer, one of the names that is being considered is Josh Gibson. Two other names that have come up also are Frank Robinson, who won the MVP in the National League and the American League, the only player to have done so.
The only player to have done that, that's right.
Right. And then Branch Rickey, who was the first to sign a player from the Negro Leagues, or a black ball player, if you will. So those are the three names. There may be more. We don't know.
I had Sean Gibson on here a few weeks back to highlight that exact thing. So I'm really glad we're talking about it again, and what your involvement is, and what other people can do, because I think it's cool. I think it's a great initiative for the reasons you're saying, and on top of that, I mean, not just to give recognition to a player of his caliber, but all of these guys. I mean, the 3,000, 4,000, whatever that number is, that were not given the chance, and that's all you ask for, right? Everybody wants give everybody a chance, right? Yeah.
So go ahead. Once Sean Gibson and the Gibson family and the Josh Gibson Foundation got word of the fact that, hey, Josh's name is in the mix here. Okay, let's start a campaign.
He told me he wasn't even aware. I mean, they called him up and he said,
"That's what I said." They called him and told him. Yeah. So when as soon as they found out about it, I said, "Okay, you want to? Well, we're all in. We're gung ho. Of course, we love this. Let's go for it." So they started with T-shirts and awareness, and Sean's made himself extremely accessible, and say anybody who wants him on a podcast, an interview, whatever, great, I'm here to talk about it, and that's wonderful. So a few weeks ago, because Sean and Tad Richardson, who runs NLB Marketplace, Negro League Baseball Marketplace, which I'll talk about in a second, and Jason Schwartz, also known as Heavy J in the card art community, and Mike Smith, known as Mr. Shake in the card art community. The four of them got together and said, what can we do to further raise awareness for this campaign? Cool. Because as you said, this isn't just about taking Josh Gibson's name and putting it on the award. It's about recognition for Josh and every single player that was denied the opportunity to play Major League Baseball. And, if you look at Josh Gibson's stats, there's no way he wouldn't have won MVP awards himself. And he's not the only one. But I mean, the Josh Gibson stories are just mind-boggling.
Hmm.
I encourage anybody. There's a website. It's a jg20mvp.com,
Hmm.
and if you go on there, it talks about Josh and his accomplishments,
Hmm.
and
You could sign the petition there as well.
yes, and
So
there
it
is a
is
petition.
literally a grassroots effort that you can
Absolutely,
have a hand in, which is very, very
absolutely,
cool. Yep.
yes. So the card art community decided, or the Josh, I'm sorry, Sean and Tad and Jason and Mike said, you know what can we do to further raise awareness for this campaign? We've got all these great card artists out there. Let's see who'd be interested in designing a Josh Gibson card.
Let me guess.
Put it out there.
Almost everybody.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I
Cool.
think at this point there are over 50 different artists, 50,
Cool. Awesome.
signed up
Yeah.
to be a part of this,
That
and
is
it
cool.
just they just keep extending the calendar and doubling up, and it was going to be a card a day through May, and now it's 1 to 2 cards a day through the All-Star break. I mean, it's
Cool. But
the support has been
I'm gonna
amazing.
have to find out more about that because I can envision it being like a 64 team field like the NCAA.
Right.
is that
So
is
now
it?
what's going to
That would be a
exactly
lot of. That would be
that's
so cool.
that's exactly
Is it?
what
Okay.
they're
Cool.
doing. They're
Awesome.
going to do a bracket challenge. So it's
Okay.
not
Cool.
just let's get the art out there.
Yeah.
There is voting. There's, likes and retweets on Twitter, and then whoever gets the most from there moves on, and there's a separate, there's another vote, and then there's a whole group of celebrity judges that are going to be involved in looking at these cards.
Awesome. Cool. Cool. Cool.
It's
Yeah.
all,
That should be
it's
fun.
wonderful that, artists are being given a showcase and a platform, but none of us are in it to promote ourselves.
Hmm.
We're all in it to promote the
Well,
renaming of the MVP award for Josh
who's
Gibson.
running that show?
It's a combination of four people. It's Sean Gibson for the Josh Gibson Foundation, Tad Richardson with NLB Mart, Negro League Baseball Marketplace. It's a group of artists that have gotten together to lend their talents and their goods, in terms of fundraising, to different various Negro Leagues, or associations or foundations that have ties to the Negro League. So, for example, there was a fundraiser done last year in conjunction with the 100th anniversary of the Negro Leagues to raise funds for the Negro Leagues Museum.
Hmm.
They've done, there was an event a couple of weekends ago with the Buck Leonard Association,
Cool.
where you could buy tickets to a webinar with former Negro Leaguers telling their stories. And, there were 3 tiers of tickets. One was just admission. The second one was admission and a chance to win art. And some of
Hmm.
the artists donated pieces. And then the third tier was that, plus you got a t-shirt. And so that was all through, the Buck Leonard Association in conjunction
Hmm.
with Negro League Baseball Marketplace.
Huh.
And now we're all, coming together for the JG20 MVP
Cool.
campaign. So
I
there's a
just was
website.
looking. I just was looking on here. I'm following them. They're not following me though. You hear that, fellas? On on Twitter, the Mr. Shake is, and so is Heavy J. But the NLB Mart, I don't see them. I'd love to have somebody on here. All you guys on here. I mean, we could set that up too and have everybody on here. I will do whatever I can to get this whole project out to as many people as I can because I'm involved. I mean, this there's how it is, right? You've got your probably your card art, you know, people, and then you got your Twitter people, and you got your Instagram people, and
Mhm.
then I'm involved in some of these simulation gaming communities, things like that. That is a whole another tens of thousands of people who are involved in and enjoy sports and are sports fans. And I know a lot of them would be really interested in hearing about some of these things. So I will do my best to to get it out in front of as many people as I can.
And I know, that a couple of the guys indicated that they were going to watch this, either live or in the coming days. I mean, I tried
Yeah,
to kind of get word out there.
yeah,
So they may reach out to you directly, but
cool. Yeah, I'd
I
love to have.
will, mention
I'd love
something.
to have him on here and
Yeah.
talk some more about this stuff. I just think the stories are great. I think these, the projects that everybody's doing, especially, with the history of the Negro Leagues and the individual projects that people have going, and the creativity and the research and the work that has gone in, some for many, many, many years, some just new at it. It doesn't matter because it's all contributing to improving the knowledge, the background, the perceptions. I mean, that's really what it's all about. I mean, you got to change hearts and minds, right? so,
Yeah. Yeah.
so what else you got on your mind? Anything else you want to talk about? I don't want to. I mean, every time I get started on these things, I always say this. I mean, you get talking. I like to talk. I like to hear things that I've never heard before, and I get talk till the sun comes up. So, you know,
I'm an Italian girl from Brooklyn. Me too.
yeah, I
I
told you I
talk
grew
and
up in
talk
a
and talk. Yeah.
I grew
Yeah.
up in a town of 7,000 people, 6,995 Italians, and my family. So I know what that's like.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have
Yeah.
big holiday gatherings and all that kind of stuff. So yeah.
Yeah. It's
So
it's
what else you got going on? What else you wanna talk about before we uh, wrap it on up?
well. Let's let me tell people where they can find me and
Mm-hmm.
what I've got coming up next. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at the lens of Donna M. So, like camera lens, the
Mm-hmm.
lens of Donna M. My email address is the same, the lens of Donna M at gmail.com. Any card artists, anybody who is interested in learning about anything that I mentioned today. If you're interested in my card set, help support the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum,
Mm-hmm.
help support my art. I'd love to hear from you. What I have coming up next, talked about
Mm-hmm.
my card for the Josh
Yeah,
Gibson.
that's what I wanted to
That's
ask. Yeah.
dropping. I believe my date is June 23rd. It's either June 23rd or
Cool.
June 24th. I'm dropping.
All right.
Um, I'm on with another amazing artist that week, named Josh Trout. He's actually an artist for, he's done some work for Tops. So I'm up against somebody who's legitimately on a baseball card. But it's not about the competition.
Yeah,
It's
it's
about
not.
getting it out
That's
there. But
right.
it's interesting. And also that week, there's another artist by the name of Scott Hodges who's really interesting. Does some great work that ties in his love of comics and digital art and storytelling, and I'm not sure who else is on that week, so my apologies to
Mm-hmm.
whoever else is on that week. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
intentionally excluding you. So that card will drop on, I believe it's the 23rd of June. um, I will, talk it up like crazy as we get closer to the date. We've
Mm-hmm.
got, so much great art coming out between
Mm-hmm.
now and then. Um, and then what'll happen is at the end of the campaign, there's going to be an opportunity to buy the pieces that were
Cool.
uh, included in the contest with, a portion, or for every artist is deciding how they're going to do it, but a portion and possibly 100% of the sale
Mm-hmm.
going back to the Josh Gibson Foundation, which does
So
amazing
much amazing
amazing
work.
work in the
Yes.
Pittsburgh area.
Yes. That
Yeah.
was another reason
um,
I wanted to have him on as well, was to talk about the Josh Gibson Foundation and all everything that they're doing,
yeah,
especially in that Pittsburgh
it's
area. And
absolutely
it's
amazing.
awesome. Yeah. It's
um,
awesome.
so the piece that it's still coming together in my head, but it will be using the what's my next venture that ties in my love of photography and my love of baseball and my love of baseball cards and collecting. They are mixed media art pieces that incorporate the photography and baseball cards,
Cool.
and there. So I'm
Awesome.
I'm looking
Awesome.
forward to releasing that. I'm actually picking up artist proofs tomorrow from
Awesome. Very, very cool.
so keeping my fingers crossed.
So down the road, we'll check in with you again and see how things are going.
Great.
And like I said, I would love to get how this is all flowing with the MVP, JG MVP campaign. I think that's very fun.
Yeah.
Very, very fun.
Yeah.
Um, all right, I really appreciate your time. This was great. I loved having you on. It was great to talk to you even before we got online for a little bit about.
Yeah,
I get
absolutely.
to
Thanks so much for
reminisce
having me.
about my all my years of living in the Northeast until I moved to Texas. So, and that's what I think this is so much fun about these types of things and what, like I said, lemonade out of lemons, with the pandemic, and people have
Absolutely.
realized that, you can still connect even though you don't, even if you're not there face to face, and you can
Yes.
still have, some really really cool interpersonal, discussions and relationships, and you could still do that without having to, yeah, it's great to
Yeah.
meet people face to face, but um, if you can't, you would improvise and you adapt and you overcome. I hear, what movie is that from? That's from Clint Eastwood. Heartbreak Ridge, was that what it was? I don't remember, but I
Not
remember he was
sure.
a Marine. He's a Marine gunny sergeant, and he's always telling these guys, you have to improvise and adapt and overcome. That's what you
That's
have to do, right? Every
it's one
day.
of the things my dad taught me. He said,
Yep.
improvise, improvise, improvise.
That's right.
So what we do.
But thank you so much. We'll get you on again
Thank
down the
you.
road if you would like to. And
I would love to.
I really appreciate your time. This was a lot of fun. I learned
It
a lot
was.
about Hinchcliffe Stadium and what you're doing, and more things about all of these other campaigns. I think this was great. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for having me.
All right. You have a good night. Bye bye.
You too. Bye bye.